Remember, if somebody punctures their lung, they're really puncturing that grayish area right here. And then, so if this pressure equalizes the one of the lungs can't expand anymore. We call that atelectasis or the collapse of the lungs, right? Or one or two lungs. Okay, so the intrapulmonary will be like in the pink. The interpleural would be in the gray here in this area. Okay, so it's gonna be the 760. Okay, and then when we talked about there was like three little phases: positive pressure when it's higher in the lungs, negative pressure, and then zero pressure when they equalize. We call it zero pressure. I don't know why they call it zero. I guess because 760 minus 760 is zero. Okay, so that's intrapulmonary. It's the pressure within the alveoli or within the lungs. Questions on that one? Number 5, be familiar with the gas laws. We talked about 3 main gas laws: Boyle's law, Henry's law, and Dalton's law. Let's talk about Boyle's law first. If you have the 9th edition, 817, 10th edition, 824. So let's go to page 824. That's the book that I have in my hand. Right here, Boyle's law. Okay. It says, Boyle's law gives a relationship between the pressure and volume of a gas at constant temperature. The pressure of a gas varies inversely with its volume. What we've been talking about: high volume, low pressure; low volume, high pressure. Okay. That one, I'm not going to ask you anything about P1, V1. I'm not going to ask you to calculate anything. Okay. P1, V1 equals P2, V2. That's the formula. It says where P is the pressure. It says gases always fill their container. Consequently, in a large container, the molecules in a given amount of gas will be far apart and pressure will be low because they're just floating, right? But if the volume of the container gets reduced, the gas molecules will be forced closer together and the pressure will rise. Okay, so on this one, look for, it says, this law states that there's an inverse relationship between pressure and volume. Boyle's law. At constant temperature, right? Boyle's law. The next one, Henry's law. Henry's law. Go to page 831. 824, you have the 9th edition, 831. If you take it down, right there. Henry's law. Henry's law, you guys experienced it in the lab last time. When you guys were blowing carbon dioxide and you saturated that solution, and you turn it from pink to yellow, that was Henry's law at work. Okay? So it says, Henry's law states that when a gas is in contact with a liquid, the gas will dissolve in the liquid, and it did, right? And you know that it did because it changed the pH from like a 9 or 10 to like a 7, and some of you guys even pushed it to like a 6, right? In proportion to its partial pressure. Accordingly, the greater the concentration of a particular gas in the gas phase, the more and faster that gas will go into a solution in the liquid. You pretty much had an endless supply of carbon dioxide, right? You kept blowing and blowing on it, and then it varied. Some people probably blew harder, so therefore the solution changed in a couple of seconds. Some of you guys took a little bit longer, a minute and a half, 2 minutes. Okay, but nonetheless, eventually you still saturated that liquid. Okay. Then what happens is that this is the one that explains also how a soda goes flat. If it's the carbonated drink, right? I open is carbonated. You open it, it fizzes. The first you hear that, right? And then leave it there, and it'll give it a couple of hours, and it'll be like really flat. All the gas escape. Okay? And then room temperature helps it escape even faster. If you open up a soda and put it in the fridge, guys, it takes a little bit longer to go flat. They both will go flat, but in the cold temperature, it delays the flatness. You want to put it that way, and then versus in the. It's actually a good experiment, and like kids, for like your science fairs, kids coming up, does temperature affect the movement of gas molecules? Okay, and then you can talk all about Henry's law. You can do research on Henry and all that. So, anyways, and then Dalton's law. Dalton's law is what we call the Dalton's law of partial pressures. It's saying that there's all these other gases in the atmosphere, not just oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, water vapor, and that each one of them has its own. It behaves its own way, right? It has exerts its own pressure. But together as a whole, the additions of all these mixtures of gases equal to one atmospheric pressure. So that's why if you look at the table right there on 831, nitrogen that exerts a pressure of about 597 millimeters of mercury out of the 760 gives it that we have about 78% or so, 78.6 approximate percentage of that atmosphere gas in the atmosphere. Okay, so that would be. I'm not asking like calculate percentages. This one, the keywords that you're looking for. Well, let's talk about Henry. The key terms that you're looking for is gases and fluids, right? If you see like words fluids, immediately think of Henry. Just think of a guy named Henry drinking a soda or something, right? Right? That's a good way to remember. And then Dalton's law is gonna be the partial pressures. Okay, that's the one that think of like partial pressures equaling like the whole. Like parts equaling the whole is gonna be Dalton. Okay. And it's the same Dalton that was discovered that the color blindness, and that's what we call people that are colorblind daltonicals. Right? The same Dalton. All right. So questions on those three laws. Keep them straight, guys. They're easy, but people kind of mix them. Okay, so next one. What is tidal volume? What is vital capacity? What is inspiratory reserve? I forgot to type the word volume. Okay, IRV. So tidal volume, that one, we already kind of addressed it. Go back to the hydrographic record. On page 829, 822, you have the digit. It says, during normal quiet breathing, about 500 mLs of air moves into and out of the lungs with each breath. This respiratory volume is tidal volume. So again, normal quiet breathing is when we did the little, just no forcing or anything, just your normal breathing. So how would you die if I place you in Mars and you took off your helmet? What's going on? Does Mars have an atmosphere? No. So as soon as that means that as soon as I take off my helmet, the atmosphere inside of me is higher than the planet Mars. It sucks the air out of me, right? That's how it's like suffocating. You probably won't even feel it, right? But that's how you will die. It's obeying Boyle's law. Higher inside your lungs. It's almost like you're carrying more air inside of you than the planet has. Right? So
can you stop while you're shaking my desk? Sorry.
That's why like the Earth is so cool because it has its own atmosphere. The gases they have. Because someone asking like, oh, why is it that you die? Like, oh, think of like what is it? More inside of us than in the planet. All right, the next one. So tidal volume, again, it says normal quiet breathing about 500 mL moves into and out of the lungs with each breath. So you're looking at your normal breathing with everything.
Oh, you're gonna ask us about like numbers?
No, I'll probably provide you the numbers. I just need you to know more of like what those the descriptions of the airs. Okay, like IRV, you said like that's the one that like TV, normal breathing. No, not the. I'll probably give you the numbers. Okay. Doesn't hurt you to kind of know them, right? 500, 1200 ERV, 3100 IRV. Roughly. And if you remember those three values, now you can add VC. It's 4800, right? Because you add IRV, TV, and ERV. So the math becomes easy once you memorize those three main values. So, and then vital capacity, VC. Vital capacity, I'm reading right there on 828, says the total amount of exchangeable air. It is the sum of TV, IRV, and ERV. So what would total lung capacity be? You would throw in as well residual, right? This is part of it. What about inspiratory reserve? Inspiratory reserve volume, the amount of air that can be inspired forcibly beyond the tidal volume. Okay, that one is anywhere between 2100 and 32. So that one is when you actually that's definitely more than 500. See? Because I actually it was forced. The other one was just. But this one is. Usually about 2 liters, 2.5 liters. So questions on those. So there'll be like matching. Okay? I'll give a tidal volume, vital capacity, all of those respiratory reserve volume. Number 7, what are the alveoli? Why are these structures so important in the respiratory system? Okay, so the alveoli, let's go to page 818. right here. It starts kind of like right here. Remember the alveoli, they kind of mark what we call the beginning of the respiratory zone. The first part, just bringing in air at bulk flow, is called your ventilation zone. Now when it actually now splits and there's actually going to be gas exchange and all of that, we're going to call it the respiratory zone. So really respiration is really occurring at the level of the alveoli. This part, yes it is, you're bringing in air, but it's not, what we call respiration is really an exchange of gases. Here you're just bringing in a whole bunch of air. That's called ventilation, right? But where the action happens, the good stuff is in the alveoli. That one's going to be, it says, defined by the presence of thin-walled air sacs called alveoli, which means in Latin small cavities. The respiratory zone begins as the terminal bronchioles feeding to the respiratory bronchioles. And then I'll read on the next paragraph, it says, the alveoli are the site of gas exchange. And that's why it's very important. Without the alveoli, all that air that you took in would be like useless. You actually need to put it in blood. And it's going to happen in the levels of the alveoli. Okay? The site of gas exchange. So they're little balloons, right? You want to kind of describe them that get filled with air, and then the air, since it's high pressure in the balloons, and then there you have capillaries, you shove it into the red blood cells. And then the red blood cells just give us carbon dioxide, and then this guy simply breathe it out. Yeah. And the gas exchange happens. Number 8. Why does red blood cell counts increase in higher altitudes? For example, when climbing the Franklin Mountains. If you have the 9th edition, 838. 10th edition, 846. So let's go to 846. I'm reading right here where it says high altitude. The last, like 2 paragraphs. Remember in high altitude, as we go up in the up a mountain, guys, the air gets thinner, meaning that there's less oxygen. Okay? So that's kind of why it's amazing that we're able to fly like on a plane and the airplane is pressurized. Otherwise, like we would die, right? Because there will be like, and that's like, for example, that's why for me it's amazing to see like an eagle, because eagles fly at distances that we couldn't breathe up there, right? I mean, it's pretty amazing. But anyways, it says high altitude conditions always result in lower than normal hemoglobin saturation levels because less oxygen is available to be loaded. For example, at about 19,000 feet above sea level, oxygen saturation of the arterial blood is only 67%, as compared to the nearly 98% at sea level. So again, see, look at the saturation went from 98 to 67. Then, to make things worse, right, the pressure, since the pressure like drops, in order for us to push more oxygen, it requires more work. Okay, but nonetheless, your body's still asking the same demands of oxygen. It says. But hemoglobin unloads only 20 to 25% of its oxygen at sea level, which means that even at the reduced saturations at high altitudes, the oxygen needs of the tissues are still met under resting conditions. Additionally, at high altitudes, hemoglobin's affinity for oxygen is reduced because BPG, which is the 2,3-phosphoglycerate concentrations, increase. This releases more oxygen to the kidneys to reduce circulatory round. But then here comes like the key. When blood oxygen levels decline, remember, because they will, the kidneys will produce more EPO, erythropoietin, hypoxia. So we put ourselves in a state of hypoxia by going up. Then, which stimulates the bone marrow production of red blood cells. So that is why. Because our body experiences a shortness of red blood cells, then our kidneys pick up that hypoxia, they release EPO, and now our bone marrow, which is our target cell, starts producing red blood cells at a higher rate. Okay?
Is there a way that you can help it out by taking iron?
No, there's certain like stimulants that you can take. Like I told you when I was we did a lot of research in South America and we were somewhere like in the Andes mountains, and the Indians give you like a drug. It's like a tea that you take that helps you with the. It's a stimulant, I guess, to help your kidneys produce more of that EPO to be able to demand. Eventually, you acclimate, and that's why like a lot of athletes go run at like in high mountains or how do those masks work?
They make you
They make you feel like you're like lacking oxygen, aren't they? Yeah, that's the, and then so it puts you in a hypoxia. That it's like they should call it a hypoxia mask, right? And it is. I know it would not be a fancy product. You wouldn't sell that many masks. That's what you call it, but that's kind of what
So if you were to take a flight though, like a flight. There's nothing really there.
No, not really. No, not really. Just until you just rest, water. And that's what kills people. A lot of the people, when they climb like the Everest and all of that, is the lack of oxygen. Right? And of course the coldness too, but that is the lack of oxygen. So they actually need to, so you know, people that are gonna climb, they go up a little and then they stay there and put it a little, and you go a little, it's days, right? That it takes for this to get to it. It's not like, I'm gonna do it in like 1 day. It will be impossible. So that's why. So the red blood cells count increase because you experience hypoxia and your kidneys release EPO that triggers your bone marrow to produce for homeostasis. Okay. All right, the next ones, 9, 10, and 11 are going to be respiratory conditions. We talked about these ones. Emphysema, a little bit more at great length than really we did tuberculosis or pneumonia. Emphysema, go to page 839 if you have the 9th edition, 847. Right there on bold letters. Emphysema. Emphysema is distinguished by permanent enlargement of the alveoli, which means since it's large volume, low pressure, right? So you're going to have a hard time getting that air out. It's going to get trapped. It says, accompanied by the destruction of the alveolar walls. Invariably, the lungs lose their elasticity. This has 3 important consequences. The first one, accessory muscles, that would be like all your intercostal, diaphragm, everything that we use. Us normal guys, if we don't have like emphysema, we only use about 5% of our muscle energy. Somebody with emphysema, anywhere between 15 to 20 to 25% of their energy. It's a workout. Just living a day is a workout in your lungs. Okay, they feel like they worked out their chest cavity, right? It's weird, but it says the accessory muscles must be enlisted to breathe. Why? To squeeze that. Since the balloons are already so big, you're trying to squeeze them as much as you can, and it's going to require your muscles to. It's almost like your muscles know, right? Like, I need to squeeze harder because these guys are not doing it by themselves. They're like this, but I need them to be like this. And then, but since you're already like so big, those muscles try their best. They probably, instead of getting like there, they probably just most successfully probably like that, right? But still, that's better than not pushing the air out. Okay. So this one, so accessory exhausted, the victims are perpetually exhausted because breathing requires 15 to 20% of their total body energy supply, as opposed to 5% in healthy individuals. That's the first thing. The next one, for complex reasons, the bronchioles open during inspiration, but then they collapse like a straw during expiration, and the air gets trapped, trapping huge volumes of air in the alveoli. This hyperinflation leads to the development of what we call a permanently expanded barrel chest, and it flattens the diaphragm, thus reducing ventilation efficiency. And then the third thing it does, damage to the pulmonary capillaries as the alveolar walls disintegrate, increases resistance in the pulmonary circuit, forcing the right ventricle to overwork and consequently become enlarged. So it has heart issues as well. Okay? It's usually caused by smoking, but they do have some hereditary factors. For example, the alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency causes emphysema in some patients. But most of the time, I would say 9 out of 10 is because of smoking.
Symptoms would be the
symptoms would be inability, gasping for air, trapped air inside, a big chest, barrel chest, right? And difficulty exhaling. So make sure you know those. Okay. The next one, tuberculosis. Go to page 847, right across from it on the bottom, right? Tuberculosis, TB, infectious disease caused by the bacterium, Mycobacterium tuberculosis, is spread by coughing and primarily enters the body in inhaled air. TB mostly affects the lungs, but can spread through the lymphatics to other organs. 1/3 of the world's population is infected, but most people never develop active tuberculosis because a massive inflammatory and immune response usually contains the primary infection. When tuberculosis becomes a problem is when our immune system is compromised. In HIV patient, or usually all of us probably is highly contagious, guys, and it's very easy to kind of catch it. Like it says, about 1/3 of people, 1 in 3 has that condition, but we usually don't develop the active, and it comes and goes. In the early 80s, there was an outbreak of tuberculosis here in El Paso. They bussed us all to a hospital. We did x-rays, and they gave us 6 months of antibiotics. And then it came back about, 6-7 years ago, Providence, the lady that was working with the little neonatal unit. Yeah, about 6-7 years ago, right? And then there was another little outbreak in an elementary school, like the janitor or somebody. So it just comes at. I guess we will never really get rid of it. Okay. There's a really cool, if you're more interested in about tuberculosis and how they dealt with it back then. There's a Netflix. The Charité is a hospital in Berlin, and it gets you a good chance for you guys to practice your German, because it's all in German. Okay? but anyways, it's really cool. In here, is the hospital, and then they present Koch with Koch's postulates, when he's kind of like, and it's pretty much about tuberculosis. It's really cool. So, you can probably binge watch one Saturday. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy that. It's similar to what we're looking at London Hospital, but what was going on at that same time, but in Germany. And so you'll see famous German Kekule, and you see a couple of chemists, and they'll ring a bell to you like, oh yeah, I saw that guy in micro, I saw that guy in chemistry. And you start saying, oh, that's what those guys were. So, but they're trying to discover the cause for the mycobacteria tuberculosis bacteria. So watch it. This is really cool. And even though it's all in German, you'll understand by the plot. Okay. So next one. So question on tuberculosis. So what are the symptoms? Fever, night sweats, weight loss, racking cough, and coughing up blood. The coughing up of blood is usually in the later stages of the disease, right? When usually there's nodules that form in your lungs, they calcify. It's almost like they turn like a shell or bone around them. And since your body tries to always get rid of something foreign, that's like when we cough, when we have something, these things, they get lodged in our lung tissue, and the coughing action cuts through lung tissue, and that's when you start you're pretty much like spitting out pieces of lung tissue, and it gets worse and worse. Remember the movie Tombstone with a doc that had that condition? That was tuberculosis, and we had a lot of tuberculosis quarantine areas in New Mexico and some areas where the air has to be dry, because remember this mycobacterium loves humidity, moist, dark, cold air, and then so people will be sent to places with dry air. It helps. It's chronic and it doesn't really go away. So homeless shelters with their densely packed populations are ideal breeding grounds for this drug-resistant strains. It grows slowly, and drug therapy entails a 12-month course of antibiotics. So that's it. So that's one. Pneumonia. What is pneumonia? How does pneumonia affect the respiratory system? 855. I'm reading right there where it says related clinical terms. It's weird that they didn't really talk too much about pneumonia, but I wanted to include it because it is the one of the most common 8th common cause of death in the United States. It says pneumonia, infectious inflammation of the lungs in which fluid accumulates in the alveoli. The 8th most common cause of death in the United States. Most of the more than 50 varieties of pneumonia are viral or bacterial. Usually pneumococcus pneumonia, right, are the strains. And those, what happens is this bacteria make residence in our lungs, in our alveoli, and then they build fluid. This fluid, remember, if my right hand is my capillary and my left hand is my alveoli, right? And then the space between them for the gases to diffuse this way has to be very close. Well, if the fluid builds up, a gap opens, right? That makes it, this huge water accumulation makes gas exchange very difficult. Okay, now the carbon dioxide and the oxygen don't travel that easily. It's the same as like jumping a little stream right here versus like an ocean. Okay, so that's what happens. The accumulation, okay, widens the gap, making diffusion of gases. The key here is making the diffusion of gases. Okay. And the more fluid you build, it's like you're drowning in this fluid. Okay, so those first 11 items complete chapter 22 material. So any questions on any of these first items? So two diagrams. One is going to be of the respiratory, and one of the spirographic for that type. All right, let's move on to item number 12. Be familiar with the following digestion terms. They're not in order. I think very randomly, so I typed them as I remember them. So in here, let's go to 858. Peristalsis. All of them are going to be there in. You see them in those bullets. Ingestion, propulsion, digestion, absorption, and defecation. All of them are right there. So let's kind of go. Let's go in the order that we have them in the study. So peristalsis. Peristalsis, if you recall, after I swallow deglutition, past the pharynx, there's going to be this contraction of smooth muscle that is very powerful. Okay, this wave-like of contractions that push the food down. That's called peristalsis. Okay, it's a form of propulsion. So propulsion means pushing food down. How does it achieve it? Through peristalsis. So peristalsis is how propulsion occurs. You see how you can link them? Okay, propulsion says propulsion which moves food through the alimentary canal, including swallowing, initiated voluntarily, and peristalsis, which is an involuntary process. Peristalsis means constriction. The major means of propulsion. So peristalsis is the major means of propulsion. Propulsion just means pushing food down, which involves alternating waves of contraction and relaxation of muscles in the organ walls. Its main effect is to squeeze food along the tract, but some mixing occurs as well. In fact, peristaltic waves are so powerful that once swallowed, food and fluids will reach your stomach, even if you stand on your head. The only thing that is powerful enough is anti-peristalsis, or what we call farming. That's one thing that's strong enough. Sometimes when you remember it, when you eat something, like to be courteous, because your parents always told you, right? But even if it's like gross, your stomach sizes it up, and it's like, that wasn't good. You're the barking. Because the cephalic phase just didn't happen. You were not too excited to eat whatever it was. So that's gonna be so peristalsis is the form of is the contraction of the wave-like motions, and it's a form of propulsion. Absorption is simply means I'm reading right here. The passage I'm reading on the orange bullet. Passage of digested end products plus vitamins, minerals, water from the lumen of the gastrointestinal tract through the mucosal cells by active or passive transport into the lymph, the blood or the lymph. Blood if it's like glucose, amino acids, proteins. Lymph if it's fat through the lactates. Okay. That's absorption. Absorption is the actual taking in of nutrients by our cardiovascular system or by our lymphatic system. Okay. The next one is going to be digestion. Just go up on the purple bullet. It involves a catabolic breakdown, right, of steps in which enzymes secreted into the lumen of the alimentary canal break down complex food molecules to their chemical building blocks. So digestion is a catabolic breakdown of food into smaller and smaller particles. Hydrolysis. Okay, hydrolysis is going to be the use of water as an enzymatic. It's an enzymatic digestion, but with the help of water. When we're trying to break down molecules, we add water, and the water splits them. Right? That's called hydrolysis. When I'm trying to build stuff, I remove water, and then the bonds happen. So let me kind of show you what I mean. So if you have, this is glucose, okay, and then here's another glucose, right? So right here is a chain. In order for me to break this chain, I need to add water. That's called hydrolysis. See? Lysis, breakdown with water. Hydrolysis, right? So if I come here and I add the water, the HOH, see? See that O that was here gets broken, and then I attach one of these H's here, and then I attach the OH here. So that's why it looks like this. So you end up with HOH like this. So that's just hydrolysis. If I want to fuse them together, I remove water, and then now become comes back to what it was originally. Okay. That's called dehydration. Synthesis. Okay, so questions on that one. The next one, secretion. Secretion is just the, I couldn't find it in the, but it's simply the expelling of substances by a gland or by an organ, right? For example, the pancreas can secrete, like the saliva, the salivary glands secrete saliva, right? The pancreas secrete lipases, nucleases, proteases. So secretion is just the release of a chemical by a gland, or a hormone by a gland, or a chemical by some organ in the body. Very simple. The next one, defecation, is right there underneath absorption, page 859. Elimination of indigestible substances from the body via the anus in the form of feces. That's just the removal of waste, solid waste from the body. Propulsion is the again moving moving a food through the alimentary canal. That you're gonna see it right there in green. And then ingestion. Ingestion is taking food from the digestive tract. In other words, introducing food into the mouth. Eating would be ingestion. So those, I'll give you the terms, and you match them. Okay? Every time it's like definitions, it's usually matching. Number 13. On this one, I'm going to give you the diagram of this guy right here. So you have a diagram, just like we did for respiratory, diagram of the digestive. Here, okay, you're gonna study the main structures here, like the esophagus, liver and gallbladder, the stomach and the pancreas, and then small and large intestine. Those are the main ones, really. Okay, and then so those you would match them, or it could be a page 857. 857, and if you have the 857 is the diagram, yes. Okay. All right, and it says, so study the alimentary canal and other related accessory organs and know the functions of the following. So from looking at, see, for example, if I'm pointing at the stomach, you could match it with, it could be just simply like say stomach, or it could be temporary storage tank in the shape of a J that we'll talk about it right now. So stomach, go to page 873. I'm reading right there to the left of the stomach. It says, below the esophagus, the gastrointestinal tract expands to form the stomach. It's from the Greek stoma, meaning mouth, because they usually literally call it that's our mouth of our body, right? The stomach. Okay. A temporary storage tank where chemical breakdown of proteins begins and food is converted to a paste called chyme. A temporary storage tank where chemical breakdown of proteins begins and food is converted to a paste called chyme. So remember, in the mouth we have amylase and lipase, but it's in the stomach that we have the pepsin that allows us to break down the protein. At least the beginning of the protein. Further down the list, we're going to have the duodenum that also continues to break down protein with the help of the gallbladder and the pancreas. So that's going to be the stomach. The next one, your pancreas, 887. The pancreas, okay, I'm reading right down the bottom, says, is important to the digestive process because it produces enzymes that break down all categories of food stuffs. Right? Okay. So it is helpful in the digestive process. It breaks down all categories. Okay, I'm not gonna ask you like the whole description, where it's located and all that. Then if you go down on page 887, the composition of the pancreatic juice, you guys see it there in bold? Look at what it contains. Approximately 12 to 1500 ml of clear pancreatic juice is produced daily. So a little over a liter, right? Consists mainly of water, contains enzymes and electrolytes, primarily by carbonate ions. Why do you think bicarbonate ions? To neutralize, to get alkaline to neutralize the acid from the stomach. Otherwise, the acid would like burn through our intestine, right? So to neutralize that stuff. The high pH of pancreatic fluid helps to neutralize the acidic kind that is entering the duodenum and provides optimal environment for intestinal and pancreatic enzymes. The pancreatic enzymes include the following guys: proteases to break down protein, amylase to break down starch, lipases to break down fat, and nucleases to break down nucleic acids. So it has it all. Yeah, the pancreas is a very important one. My grandpa died of pancreatic cancer. Very painful and very insidious because by the time he usually diagnosed it, you really don't feel any symptoms, and it kills you really fast.
Is that the reason?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you're confusing it with like, I don't know, maybe I just had that stuff, so stop my good. And let know something else is wrong.
So what are the tests for?
Oh, for the levels of these different enzymes? Okay, well, we're talking about years ago.
Oh, is that someone?
Yeah, she died of, was it like diabetes and something else, right?
Who?
Urethra?
She died of complications.
Complications, right, from
the diabetes.
And then Steve Jobs, right? Didn't he die of pancreatic?
Pancreatic cancer. But he had a
pancreatitis condition, right?
and they had already did a pancreas transplant because he had so much money. Oh yeah, but he still died.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it has like proteases and amylase. Does that mean like the words next to it is what it breaks it down?
Yes. ACE means enzyme. So enzyme, protein degrading enzyme, lipid degrading enzyme. So just lipases, proteases. Yeah, so the proteases break down protein. The amylases break down the starchy product, right? The nucleases break down the nucleic acids, the nucleotides. And then amylases, lipase, proteases, and nucleases. All four types. The four macromolecules that we discussed, that we learned in version 6, the pancreas helps us in breaking them down.
What is an example of nuclease?
The ones that break down, for example, like the nucleotides, like for DNA, RNA, the nucleic acids. All right.
So,
Yes.
are you gonna the rotation?
Yeah, no, you're gonna get the diagram, but I can say this structure contains proteases, amylases, and point to the pancreas, right? Match it with the pancreas, like that. If I say this one involves usually mechanical digestion of proteins or whatever, point to the stomach. Or the only one that has mucus or whatever, like the stomach, like that. Okay. So let's go to the next one. The liver. The liver. Go to page 884. The liver. Okay. I'm reading right there on the where it says microscopic anatomy of the liver. Go down like to the 4th, 5th paragraph where it says the versatile hepatocytes have large amounts of both rough and smooth ER, Golgi apparatus, peroxisome, mitochondria. So that mainly the liver secretes about 100 mLs of bile daily. It processes blood-borne nutrients in various ways. They store glucose as glycogen and use amino acids to make plasma proteins. Albumin, right, is made in the liver. They can store fat-soluble vitamins. They play important roles in the detoxification, such as ridding the blood of ammonia by converting it to urea. When we eat protein, we tend to produce a very small amount of ammonia, but nonetheless it's enough to be dangerous. They send it to the liver breaks it down, it causes deamination, and then it sends it to the kidneys, then the kidneys filter it out and we pee it out in the form of urine.
So when it's not excreted out, it's when you have it down.
Yeah, you start uric acid, it creates gout and it forms in your crystallizes in your toes and between joints, like in your fingers. So the liver has like all of those different things, right? Like detox things, the secretion of bile, breaking down the blood, processing blood-borne nutrients, storing fat-soluble vitamins, storing glucose in the form of glycogen, and then any extra glucose turns into fat. We call that condition fatty liver. And then the small and the large intestines. The small intestine, guys, is where about 80 to 85% of absorption takes place. So nutrient absorption is in the small intestine. In the large intestine, is usually pretty much for elimination and some water reabsorption. You do absorb some salts as well, but mainly water. Okay? And we have about 3 pounds of bacteria in our large intestine. Remember we call that our normal flora. And this bacteria helps us, it lives in a symbiotic relationship with us. We feed it, right? And they give us like vitamin K, vitamin D, like those kinds of things. Okay. So small intestine, most of the absorption of nutrients, large intestine, some absorption of salts and water, okay, and for the defecation, pretty much. And then the gallbladder stores and concentrates the bile. Yes, it stores and concentrates the bile that came from the liver. So it'll help us emulsify the fats, right? To make it easier to digest. Yes. It concentrates, stores and concentrates and releases, of course, bile. It helps us emulsify the fats, meaning to put them into the little mycelials, the little droplets, so that our lymphatic system can absorb them properly. So that's why having like liver problems can also, that's one of the questions. If somebody has liver problems, you're not going to be able to handle fats that well anymore. Number 14, what is bile? What is the role of bile in the human body? It's right there on page 84. I'm reading at the very bottom where it says bile. Bile is a yellow-green alkaline solution, okay, containing bile salts, bile pigments, cholesterol, triglycerides, phospholipids such as lecithin and others, and a variety of electrolytes. Of these, only bile salts and phospholipids aid the digestive process. Bile salts primarily salts of cholic and chenodeoxycholic acids and cholesterol derivatives. Okay, here's the key. They play a crucial role in both the digestion and absorption of fats. They play a crucial role in both the digestion and the absorption of fats. Okay, that's the bile salts, right? So bile is that green alkaline solution, and it really serves 2 functions. It kind of neutralizes the acid, right? So it's not too acidic in our stomach, so it's alkaline. And the other one is the emulsification, the emulsifying of the fats. The emulsifying of the fats. Yes, it neutralizes, it's alkaline, therefore it neutralizes the acid of the hydrochloric acid, right, from the stomach. And then it helps when we're getting ready to handle fats in the digestion and the absorption of these fats. And it's produced by the liver, but stored and concentrated and released from the gallbladder.
So you make sure that the stomach doesn't burn.
Yeah, exactly.
You also make sure it breaks some fat so we can absorb it.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Puts it in those little mycelials. We call that emulsifying.
What's that word you get?
Emulsifying. Yeah. Well, the only reason you continue to like live is because even though they remove, remember the liver has like 2 ducts. The hepatic liver duct there, that one is not removed. It's just the one with the cystic in the. So you still produce a little bit, but it's not as concentrated as if it was coming from the gallbladder. Right? Imagine you wouldn't be able to eat anything, and still, it's your diet has to change slightly. You know, like let's say you used to eat like 2 eggs for breakfast. Maybe now you probably can go like 1 because you usually end up getting the bronze and stuff because you're not handling it.
You get the monthly dump. And you get a lot of fat.
That's weird, huh? Okay, so questions on so again, the role was to neutralize the acidity through its alkalinity and to help in the handling the fats. All right, let's see, we have about 15 minutes. No, we'll be done. Okay. What is chyme? Go to page 873. When we eat food, guys, and it mixes in our stomach, it becomes called chyme. Don't confuse it with chyle. Remember, chyle is fat with lymph fluid. Chyme, C-H-Y-M-E, right? Chyme, A73. Right there, when we were talking about the stomach, it says, chyme, a temporary type where chemical breakdown of proteins begins and food, all that food, right, is converted to a paste called chyme. So it is food plus gastric juices all combined, and it turns into this cream color paste. That's called chyme. So chyme is just food in the stomach mixed with gastric juices. Very, very simple. Okay? So I ask you, like, a question would be, where is chyme created? Pancreas, gallbladder, liver, stomach. Right? Stomach. Okay. Number 16. So there's where is chyme created in the stomach. Okay, what is chyme? We already went to and where is it created? In the stomach. What are the solutes found in saliva? A66. It's mostly water, but it does have a lot of different components. I'm reading at the bottom right there on page 866, which says composition of saliva. All right, in terms of its solutes, you need to remember that it has quite a few things. If it's electrolytes, if I ask you for electrolytes, remember the following: sodium, potassium, chloride, phosphate, and bicarbonate. You guys see them? Okay, if I ask you for enzymes, two main ones: amylases and lingolipases. The one that allows us to taste like butter and the syrup, right, and pancakes. If I ask you for pure proteins, it would be like mucin, lysozyme, which is the same as in tears, and immunoglobulin A, which is in secretions, right? So it's almost like our natural antibiotic. And then if I'm asking you for metabolic waste, you would pick urea and uric acid. So it could be a very general. I could say, like, which one of these is not a solute found in saliva, and it's going to be one that is like not there, right? Or it could be like, which electrolytes are found in saliva? So, okay, electrolytes have to have charges, so the potassium, the chlorides, the bicarbonates, and the phosphates, right? So that's going to be the composition of saliva. Okay, where is hydrochloric acid secreted? And what is the function of hydrochloric acid? Okay, so that one, go to page 875. Which of our four types of cells produces the hydrochloric acid? The parietal, yes. Okay, the parietal. Very good, you remember. So right there I'm reading where it says types of glands. Go to the second one involved, parietal cells. It says, the parietal cells found mainly in the more apical, that means region, right, of the glands, scattered among the chief cells, described next, simultaneously secrete hydrochloric acid, an intrinsic factor. Don't forget that one as well. Although parietal cells appear oval when viewed with a light microscope, they actually have three prongs that bear dense microvilli. They look like fuzzy pitchforks. The structure provides you a certain, HCl, here. In other words, so let's tackle first, where is it secreted from? It's secreted from the parietal cells of the stomach, of the gastric pits, right, of the stomach. What does it do? Here it is. It makes the stomach contents extremely acidic, pH between 1.5 to 3.5. Almost up there with like battery acid, right? Yeah, that's pretty strong. A condition that is necessary for the activation and optimal activity of the protein digesting enzyme, pepsin, that was released from where? The pepsin. The pepsinogen. The chief cells, when they come in contact, it turns them into pepsin, right? So yes. So the hydrochloric acid is produced in the parietal cells along with the intrinsic factor, and it does two main things. Three things I would say. The acidity is such a low pH that it burns practically everything, which also protects us against like pathogens. If you eat something, think of like, for example, when we eat a bologna sandwich. The meat is pretty raw. It's not sterile. It has probably some bacteria in it, but we don't die because our hydrochloric acid takes care of us, right? And then also the acidity triggers the pH triggers the pepsinogen to get converted into pepsin. So it has all those different structures, different functions. It says here. It's harsh enough to kill many of the bacteria ingested with food, and then the intrinsic factor is a glycoprotein that is required for vitamin B12 absorption. Otherwise, we end up with pernicious anemia. The next one. What is pepsinogen? And where is the enzyme secreted? So let's answer the second part is where it is secreted in the chief cells, right? Chief cells. The chief cells. Okay, and the chief cells, remember they're part of also our gastric pit cells, one of the 4 cells. I'm reading right there, it says, chief cells occur mainly in the basal regions of the gastric glands. The cuboidal chief cells produce pepsinogen, the inactive form of pepsin. It only becomes pepsin after it has hit HCl. If it doesn't hit HCl, it's an inactive form. It's going to be useless. So even our acidity or pH needs to be in sync so that everything works properly. So when these cells are stimulated, the first pepsinogen molecules they release are activated by the HCl, encountering the apical region of the gland. But once pepsin is present, it also catalyzes the conversion of pepsinogen to pepsin. The activation process involves the removal of small peptide fragments from pepsinogen, causing it to change shape when exposed at the side. Also, the feedback process is limited only by the amount of pepsinogen present. Okay?
What page is that?
Right there, 875. Next one, what is amylase? Why does the body need amylase enzyme? You're going to find amylase, we actually produce it in 2 places. First in the saliva, as well as in the pancreas, right? Most of it, of course, is going to be the pancreas, but we do produce a little bit in order to break down what is going to be the amylase to break down like starch, right? Carbohydrates, carbohydrates. So amylase is an enzyme that breaks down complex carbohydrates, starch. That's why when you eat like a saltine cracker, and you get that taste of it's the amylase that's going to taste that saltine cracker. Because you know it has that salty taste, but at the same time sweetness to it. It's the amylase.
Is it saliva what else?
So, and the pancreas. Yes. But remember the pancreas has the 4 types: amylase, proteases, nucleases, and lipases. Okay. Why does the body need amylase enzyme? Of course, to break down. You'll find that 865. 865, yes. Right there it says, the salivary gland, it says, contains the enzyme amylase that begins the digestion of starchy food. Obviously in the stomach it continues, right? And then in the intestines it continues, but with the pancreas helping it. So, to break down the digestion of starchy food. What is lipase? Okay, it's an enzyme that breaks down lipids, fat. Page 857, if you have 9th edition, 904.
What page is it?
904. Right here it says lipids. It says, triglycerides are the most abundant fats in the diet. The small intestine is the primary site of lipid digestion because the pancreas is a major source of fat digesting enzymes or lipases. So it's a fat digesting enzyme, highly present in pancreas. So the question is, what does this enzyme lipase break down in the body? The fats, like triglycerides and things like that.
In the stomach, you said?
The pancreas has the, remember that. So it's more than likely where your body really handles it is in the beginning of the duodenum, because they're both empty into there. And yes. Yes, sir.
So what is the relation between bile and lipase?
The relationship between bile and lipase, the bile helps you in other words, it's almost like you break it down and then the bile keeps it small enough to be absorbed by the liver.
So bile doesn't really break down.
No, it's mostly just to
make it
package it in a way that your body flows with it. Okay, number 21, what is metabolism? What is anabolism and what is catabolism? And metabolism, guys, is going to be the biochemical reactions, right, occurring in your body. Is the sum of all chemical reactions going around inside your body. which includes building up stuff that we call anabolism, and the breaking down of stuff that we call catabolism. So building up, anabolism, breaking down, catabolism.
So metabolism is just the general.
The general term for both, yes. Yes. So all biochemical reactions going on in the body is defined as metabolism. And as you know, the major metabolic gland is the thyroid gland. I'm not going to ask you that, but you mentioned that you guys make that connection. The thyroid controls a lot of our metabolism. That's why, like, when you have hyperthyroidism, your metabolism is so fast that it produces a calorogenic effect, and they're always hot, and their heart is always beating faster. When you have hypo, your metabolism is very slow. You gain weight.
So
Metabolism is all the chemical reactions, biochemical reactions going on in your body, right? And then catabolism is the breakdown. Think of like a catapult, knocking down a wall. Right? And then anabolism, it'll be like anabolic steroids. Anabolicus, right? Build muscle. Bolas everywhere, right? Right? Except where they really need to be right. Except down there, right? Because the anabolics take the place of testosterone. So the testosterone, the only job is the testes is to produce testosterone. And since you're giving it to them, the testes say, okay, I can go on vacation, right?
I give up.
Okay, and then number 22, what is the importance of the liver in terms of the digestion process? It's going to be important, as you have seen, because of the bile everything, in the handling of the fats, of the lipids. So what would happen if the liver is damaged? You will not be able to successfully handle fats, the lipids.
Not be able to
Handle the fats, the lipids. Remember when you guys, in 1306, one of the labs was called macromolecules, and you tested, you used the Benedicts for the sugars, the urate for the protein, and then there was a little, that red powder that was called Sudan 4 crystals that leaves some mess everywhere, that's what, but then you put it like on butter, you put it with like butter and lard, and then you rub it, and then you put fried red off it for fat. And then, so that's the test that they do, they take a little bit of your feces, and they streak it, and they pull out those crystals. And then they rub it, and if it turns bright red, that means that you're not absorbing the fats properly. It's going in the feces, which is not normal. It should not. You should be absorbing it. And sometimes, you know, when you drink like teas and stuff like that, you know that some of that fat has been removed. And, I know it's kind of gross, but you look at your poop and it has like fat floating around it, right? That's normal, right? So you should be absorbing most of it. Alrighty, guys. So any questions on any of this material? So we have you see, it's not that terribly hard. Just focus, and if you have questions on like that day, like sometimes I use vocabulary because I don't come with a territory. I have to use scientific terminology. I can say like thing or no, they have names, right? So, but you can always ask me, what does this word mean? And I will be more than happy to tell you what the word means. So again, if this is what I gave for anyone walked in after the fact, okay. So in here we're gonna help the Tejano food.